Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new NVIDIA daily update video. So today, as per usual, let's talk about NVIDIA stock. Let's talk about what is happening to the stock, what we can expect moving forward, and overall, I'll give you my thoughts really moving forward in general. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you do enjoy my technical analysis and thoughts on the charts, updates, etc., I do share my thoughts and updates daily with my members in my YouTube membership section down below. The description has the link to it. As the market is trading, every single day the market is trading throughout the trading day, I'm constantly giving them updates. So if you're interested in that, link is below. For just $3 a month, again, you get access to all this information, mainly on Tesla stock with the $3 tier. Sometimes other stocks, if I see opportunities worth sharing, or for $5 a month, you get access to all of that I just said, plus NVIDIA daily updates as the market is trading every single day. But jumping into it, NVIDIA closing the day with a nice respectable 4.5%, closing at $144.50 per share, which obviously is pretty good compared to the market. The market having a pretty good day today too. NVIDIA slightly outperforming the market, you can argue, but nonetheless, a good day for sure. Question, of course, is what's next? So we've been talking about NVIDIA, how it's setting up to look pretty beautiful, and well, it finally executed that beautifulness, right? We had that nice little, bottom tick, if you will, bottom like picking area, if you will, all the way down here. We know the oversold RSI and the Bollinger Bands being oversold, etc., etc., etc. And then the MACD flipped, stochastic flipped, and both of them were looking great. Remember how I said despite us moving down, the stochastic was still pointing straight up? Look at that. Look at this beauty, right? Absolute beautiful follow through. And yeah, that's what we like to see, right? This is pretty nice stuff. Now, this is where everyone's going to start chasing. This is the problem. This is where, in my opinion, I'm going to start being more cautious, because I think this is where a lot of people are going to start chasing. Now, I do want to get this, I guess, obvious out of the way. There is still more upside. Overall, I think there's a lot more upside, but I'm talking about short term. Short term, I think there's a bit more upside. I think we can maybe go to 146 even, but I think this is where the short term risk versus reward for further upside is not there anymore, right? I think that it's definitely a lot less than it was, especially down here. But even back when we were essentially setting up this little bull flag here, I think the short term risk reward for further upside up here, not as ideal anymore, right? It's not as appealing to me anymore. I'll be completely honest with you. So I am pretty much out of my positions because again, we're at the top end of the Bollinger Bands now on the daily chart, right? When we're at the top end of the Bollinger Bands, this is not where you get bullish, right? This is not where you start, I should say, turning bullish. This is where you start, either just riding what you got. That's obviously an option. Selling calls against your shares, which is the reason I'm out of my positions. My calls that I sold have been executed. So I'm pretty much selling my shares because of that. That's not a problem with me. I'll give you my thoughts, what I think will happen next regardless, as unbiased as possible. But also the RSI, right? We have these indicators. Whenever RSI is into oversold territory and also the stock is closer to the upper end, or if not already at the top end of the Bollinger Bands on the daily chart, that's where I start getting cautious. The opposite is true as well. When it's oversold and we're at the bottom of the Bollinger Bands, that's where I'm starting to look for opportunities. Now, it can be risky, obviously, and it's a little scary at times because it's, wow, things are selling off. My goodness, what if it goes lower? Because everyone was talking about that head and shoulders pattern. But we mentioned that there is a risk, but I don't think it's going to happen. Remember this one? Hey, it didn't happen. So congratulations. The Bears lost once again. But with that being said, again, overall, the message I'm trying to say is the fact that this is where people are going to start chasing, but this is not where you're supposed to start turning bullish. Now, granted, I will admit the structure looks good. The overall technicals on this chart are looking pretty good. Everything, in my opinion, overall, longer term for the next maybe month or so, looks pretty good. I think it looks still pretty damn solid. I see no obvious complaints, personally speaking. Why? Because we broke out of this downward trend. We now set up a fresh new higher high, right? Nice little higher high here, nice looking stuff. I think it's looking pretty decent so far. I really do. I think it's not looking too bad at all. But again, just me personally, when I see a stock that, everyone was scared here and everyone was scared here, back when the RSI was oversold and we're near the bottom of the Bollinger Bands, or we're setting up a bull flag, and now people are starting to get bullish, again, that's not where I want to get bullish, right? This is where I want to either start getting more cautious or hedge or whatever, sell calls, whatever the case may be. Now, the question is, what happens next? Well, we're at a major area, right? This is an area that was an absolute resistance point in the past. You can see back here, massive area of resistance, massive area of support, right? Massive area of resistance. And now we're pretty much right back there again. So in other words, this kind of mid 140s, in theory, should be an area of massive resistance. I say the words in theory because you ultimately never know, obviously, right? Anything can happen in the stock market. Nothing is guaranteed. It's all essentially probability based. But just looking at the history of the stock's performance and how it's behaved, and it's just overall behavior essentially, yeah, this area has proven to be in the past as a powerful resistance and support. So naturally, because we're coming back up into it, we assume for now it'll act as a resistance. That's just the assumption we can make based on the previous behavior of the stock. And that's what I will begin assuming, especially when you combine that with the Bollinger Bands, of course. We're pretty much at the upper end of the Bollinger Bands here. RSI is entering overbought territories, right? Every time it's entered overbought territories, what do you think happened next? Hey, I'm just saying, right? Now, again, we're not super overbought. We could still go higher. Like I said, 146 is still technically in play. Absolutely. But this is where I'm getting cautious. Now, the question, of course, is, okay, but let's say we do get a resistance here. Let's say we do actually stop, this rally for now. Let's say we do, maybe even downtrend a little bit, right? Let's say we go down. Where do I see the move to the downside, and where do I see the next potential good opportunity for NVIDIA? Pretty much low 140s. It's really that simple. Low 140s to worst case scenario, high 130s, but I don't think we'll go to the high 130s. The worst case scenario is making a way back all the way down here to retest this breakout of this bull flag, which will actually be even closer to the mid 130s. That's, to me, is like the worst case bullish scenario. I don't think that's going to happen, but it is a possibility. Because that would also kind of line up pretty well with the middle line, essentially kind of reversion to the mean, if you will, of the Bollinger Bands, like the middle line here, right? That will actually line up pretty well if it happens on Monday, which would be a decent drop. That would be a drop of about 4%. It would pretty much give back all the gains today. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm not expecting that to happen. My more kind of expected play, if you will, would be a move back down closer to about 140, 141, maybe 139, something like that, right? Maybe 2.5% drop, something like that, give or take, of course. That's kind of my general main, I guess, target area, if you will, where I'm starting to get interested again, right? That's where I will start to get interested again, because again, this area has acted as a major area of resistance. We had a lot of issues breaking above this area. We finally did on slightly elevated volume, which is a nice sign to see. And now, of course, naturally, a beautiful move back down, retest that area, which is something NVIDIA likes to do. NVIDIA is a stock that really respects technicals. That's why I actually really like this. It's become arguably maybe my favorite stock even, but maybe not more than Tesla still, but it's up there now, because the stock respects technicals. It's a very technical respecting stock, and I like that because it's very nice to read. It feels like a very good book essentially that I'm reading, right? And this stock likes to respect technicals. So again, kind of like what it did here, except hopefully we avoid this part. We kind of come back down similar to pretty much what we did right here. Retest this area, really to confirm that, yeah, this is now support, right? No longer is it a resistance. We confirm it into a support. Obviously before it was resistance, and then we base around here. I expect us to base as well. I don't think we'll just completely bounce up here and rally right away. I mean, we could. I don't think we will though, because what I want to see next is the fact that if I bring out the bands again, I want to see us essentially consolidate anywhere between pretty much today's high roughly to about 140 roughly. I want us to essentially consolidate for at least for a little bit in that area to let these bands turn green. The EMA bands have just turned green, but I want to see the market bias turn green as well. I want to see it turn back into support. I want to see 140 turn back into support, and I want to see that continuation. I want to see a little bit of a cool off, let the bands catch up, the Bollinger Bands, for instance, at the RSI, get a tiny bit of a cool off. And then I think from here, at the very least, we'll go sideways and then go up, or we get a nice bounce into a straight move to the upside. I don't know which one will happen, but the point is the fact that both of those scenarios ultimately lead to the same conclusion, which is essentially another continuation to the upside. I'm still obviously very bullish on the stock. I still think the stock has more upside than downside overall potential. It's just very short term, maybe for the next week, maybe less. I do think it's a little bit on the more overheated side. For instance, on the 4 hour, you can see we're hugging the top side of the Bollinger Bands. And the 4 hour is also really good when it comes to the Bollinger Bands. Whenever you're hugging the upper end and the RSI is overbought versus, when you're hugging the bottom end and the RSI is oversold, it's led to bottoms more often than not, as is it also has led to tops more often than not as well. Now, no system is perfect. Doesn't mean that this has to be the top. Doesn't mean this will be, exactly like it was all those other times. Of course, nothing is perfect. But it's all about probability, and there's a higher chance it will act like it did before than it will not, at least roughly the same. So anyway, that's just kind of what my general perspective right now moving forward on NVIDIA stock. I still think it has more upside overall. I don't think the stock is done just yet, but in my opinion, not financial advice, this is not where you chase. You wait for a nice, beautiful reconfirmation of old resistance turning to support. And that's where you re-enter or accumulate or enter a fresh position, whatever the case may be, whatever your situation may be. And you look to ride it up even further. Unless, of course, proven otherwise, which, yeah, you never know, right? Obviously, it's always a risk. But anyway, that's my current thought process on NVIDIA. Pretty simple stuff. I think the stock is looking great still overall, despite that short-term potential overheatedness, if you will. Yeah, still looks pretty good. Still looks pretty solid. I think my only other concern I would say is QQQ. The main reason I have a little bit of a concern for QQQ is because if I remove all these indicators for now, the main thing I want to kind of put your attention to is going to be this trend line. This little red trend line, right, has acted as a support many times. We never closed below it. Even this candle here, we went below it, but we didn't close below it. Well, not that long ago, obviously, we did close below it. We turned it into resistance. And now we're arguably coming back up into this trend line, almost as if we were retesting it as a resistance now, as opposed to before was, of course, support, many times. So that's a concern. I would say that's my main concern right now in this market. So I think the worst case scenario in the market is we do get a rejection here. We do make a move down. NVIDIA has been showing a lot of strength. So that's why, if NVIDIA does kind of follow the market, if you will, this would be about a 3% drop. NVIDIA's been showing a lot of strength. I don't think it'll drop, 6%. I think it'll probably drop maybe 4% at most. Yeah, if the market does get this rejection and make its way back down and, has a bit more traps, like for instance, a bull trap here into a bear trap here, closer to 500 for QQQ, for instance, that could be what maybe makes, for instance, Tesla make its way a little bit lower still. Maybe NVIDIA makes its way a little bit lower to like 140s and maybe even high 130s, right? And then we'll see from there, because again, I don't think we'll go much lower than that in the market as a whole. I think the market overall is most likely closer to a bottom than it is to a top, personally speaking. But obviously, you really never know. We're in a bit of a kangaroo market right now, so you want to be a little bit cautious, in my opinion, right? You really never know with this market right now. It's a little bit finicky for sure. But, hey, the Bollinger Bands are still pretty good on the QQQ, and whenever it's been at the bottom end of the Bollinger Band, it's bounced pretty well. But we could potentially pay it another visit next week. So let's see how this thing plays out. Let's see how this moves forward. Hard to say for sure. It's a bit of a tough market right now. There are definitely some question marks in the air for sure. But yeah, let's just see. So again, if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on Monday.